Hey, welcome to our journey with Jesus, day 6 of our Bible recap chronological study plan. We are reading through Job 10 through 13 today. And in chapter 10, we see Job responding to Bildad from chapter 8, I think, because chapter 9 is when he started his response. In chapter 10, it's where he kind of transitioned his response to Bildad, and he's just starting to plead to God. And he's just saying, he hates his life, and that he's putting all his thoughts and feelings out there to God. And he is just being as real and as raw as he can be with him. I don't know that I could ever say a lot of the words that Job would say to him. I hope I wouldn't. But we do see that he has that close enough relationship with him that he felt like he could do that. And I feel like there is a sense of we can see his relationship with him and why God would call him righteous. And I mean, we see God rebuke him a little bit towards the end and some of the things like, who are you, and that kind of thing. But the very fact that he had the close walk with God, that he felt he could do that, is amazing to me. And so he starts by, he's saying, if you find me guilty of something, how does what you're doing to me fall in line with what you call good, what he's learned and known about God to be good? And then we see that he's acknowledging him as creator. In verse 9, he says, remember that you have made me like clay and will return me to dust. And so we even see a hint here that he had known some of the stories from Genesis, where Adam was created from the dust. And so we know that Moses wrote Genesis and that he wasn't there at the time, obviously, that the world was created. And so all of these stories were handed down. And so we see that whether Job would have known, if he existed during the time of Moses, or, however he knew, though all of those stories were handed down because he knew that that Adam was created from dust. And so Job is saying that you made me and now you're going to destroy me. Like, he was just confused. Like, why would you do this? And in 13 and 14, we see Job insinuating that God was out to get him, kind of saying, you never told me about this part, and he should have known it was too good to be true. Again, a lot of this, and I just can't help but thinking the audacity he has to say some of these things to God, but I'm reminded about his relationship with him. And he says to God that he feels like he was watching and waiting for him to miss a step and kind of mess up, and wishing he'd never been born. This is what's so sad to me, wishing that he'd never been born and asking God to let up and let him have some joy before he dies. Like, he just felt like he was about to die, and that if he was going to die in this way, that he would never have joy again. And then we see in chapter 11, Zophar, his friend. I use that term loosely on all these people, because I never want to be that kind of friend. I never want to be the friend that is kind of like, well, you did this to yourself, so you're getting what you deserve. Forgive me if that has ever been me. And so we see Zophar being shocked at Job's words. The amount of lamenting that Job is doing and saying that, Zophar is saying to Job, do you think we will allow you to keep talking about God this way? And that God would give him a piece of his mind. Even had the audacity to tell Job that he hasn't gotten half of what he deserves. Like, really? Wow, let's kind of pour salt on all them wounds. And Zophar tells him, who are you to know or understand God? Which is true. Who are we? And we see God telling him that later. Spoiler alert. If God created all of this, and if he determined he was guilty, what are you going to do about it? Asking Job, what you going to do about it if you're guilty? And then he insinuates that God sees past his fake claims of innocence. So like he is like just convinced that Job caused this, and that all of this pleading that Job is doing is just fake, that he's lying. And then in verse 12 of 11, in my book, in the ESV is what my Bible is the ESV translation. It says, but a stupid man will get understanding when a wild donkey colt is born a man. I'm kind of like, what does that mean? And so I went to my NIV translation. If you see me looking over to my this way, then I'm looking at my NIV Bible. That's what I used all last year. And I was really kind of sad to start using another one, but I've really enjoyed this one. It has room for journaling and stuff on the side. One day I'll show y'all videos of my book if you want to, my Bibles if you want to see them. Lots of notes, lots of things. So it's verse 12 in chapter 11. And let's see what this one says. No. So I had to go to the Message version because I like dumb it down for me. What does that mean? And it says, about the same time mules learn to talk. And I was kind of like, okay, I see a hint there of Balaam and his donkey. And we'll see that later in the Old Testament. And so in the rest of chapter 11, we see Zophar going on and telling Job, if you do this or you do that, then your world would be sunshine and roses, essentially. Like, if you would just do this, then your world, everything would be good. Again, works-based, and that's just not the way it works. And so in chapter 12 and 13, so from 12 to 13, 12 to 14, actually, we see Job's longest response. And Job begins to get a little sassy. I can hear a lot of sarcasm there. We see Job saying, I'm sure you speak for all the experts, and when you die, all of the knowledge dies with you. And you're kind of like, okay, Job, I hear you. I would probably be a little sassy, probably a lot more sassy than that. But in chapter 12, verse 5, we see, in the thought of one who is at ease, there is contempt for misfortune. It is ready for those whose feet slip. So more or less that's saying those who aren't struggling don't seem to understand those who are. And they often have contempt and no compassion for them. And so I really think we can learn from the friends, and then even by Job's responses to them, that, you know, some things, while they may be true, because they speak some truth, we need to be more compassionate in, one, our delivery, but two, in the way that it lands on their heart. So Job is more or less told his friends that they didn't need to explain God to him, because he knew everything they said wasn't anything that he didn't already know. And Job was sure that they were wrong, even though Job didn't know why himself that all of this was happening to him either. But he knew they were wrong. And Job compares his friends to doctors who didn't know what they were doing. Even said that if they shut up, that would be wisdom. I chuckle when I read that. And he tells them, now you listen to me. And it throws their words back. He throws their words back in their face, and even challenges them. Would it turn out well for you if God examined you? And then, you know, he just begins to plead to God in verse 20. Like he directs it. Each time we see when he's responding, he redirects his response to God and just pleads with them. And so in Job, it includes 3 cycles of conversation. And so the first conversation is from chapter 4 to 14. We'll see his friends speak, then Job responds, and then oftentimes, like I said, he gets to addressing God personally. And tomorrow we'll read the last of Job, the last of Job's response of the first cycle, and then we begin the second cycle. So I hope this helped, and we will see you again tomorrow.